Hello and welcome to this new episode of Expert Connect. I'm Srinath Reddy. I'm the founder, one of the founders here at Intentwise. Intentwise is a technology company, and we have two solutions. One is an Amazon ad optimization platform, and another is an Amazon analytics platform that's really designed to help you simplify your processes around Amazon data, whether it's for reporting or analytics. Today, I have the pleasure of hosting Keith O'Brien, who is the CEO of Page.One, which is a full-service Amazon agency. And Keith and team have a ton of expertise around content creation. And today, we're going to learn from him about best practices around, video content for Amazon.
How you doing, Srinath? Thank you very much for having me.
A little bit about Keith. Keith, prior to Page.One, he was the CEO of I Love to Review. On a personal front, he's a travel buff, loves spending time with his family, plays a lot of pickleball, and also loves his bourbon. Are there any specific brands of bourbon?
I like so many, it's hard to narrow it down.
My dad is a big whiskey fan, so I have a stash of whiskey. And because of you, last night, I was trying to figure out this difference between bourbon and whiskey. And here's what I found. All bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon.
That is correct.
If nothing else, this is a big takeaway from today's conversation.
Like it's all apples are fruit, but not all fruit are apples.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, Keith, why don't you take a moment to talk about Page.One?
Sure. We're our core office, and I'm sorry, it looks like I'm fidgeting on my desk. As you know, Srinath, when we get on a video call, my dog tends to want to play. So we're a full service Amazon agency based out of South Florida. Our core staff is all local here with additional staff spread out all over the world, both in the US and extended countries. And we have two sides of the business, really, and they support each other. On the project-based side, we have a creative team that is run by a head of production that does everything from product photography, video, design on Amazon A+, storefront, infographics, everything that you need to engage conversion, and then content optimization. Right. So that side of the business, we tend to work with a lot of other agencies that don't have those in-house teams. And they know our standards are high, and so they can trust that we work on put our best foot forward with their larger accounts. On the managed service side, we manage advertising for a number of brands, as well as manage the entire brand. So, on the brand management, we're doing everything from A to Z on Amazon outside of, say, customer service.
Thanks for that intro, Keith. It sounds like, you clearly have spent a ton of time around the topic of content. And today, the session is about best practices around video content for Amazon. Why don't we begin by just, can you share your perspective on what has changed around visual assets and their importance for brands when it comes to presence on Amazon?
Sure. Yeah, our first company, I Love to Review, back I guess it's 7 years this month. Back then, most of the images on Amazon were taken in someone's warehouse or basement with a iPhone 5. Right. And,
yeah,
one or two images. And then, for the larger brands, it was even worse. Most of the time it was uploaded from their product specs, manufacturer spec sheets. And no one really gave much of attention to it. And what we noticed back then when we had the review business, we were driving a lot of traffic to listings. And if they weren't optimized well, they wouldn't convert well. And so, that's where it all started, and we started getting good at content optimization and how to actually create an image stack. It just, now everyone's just up their game, right? And so the independent sellers have understood for the last couple of years that that is a market opportunity for them when they're launching a product against a larger brand that potentially is a little slow to update their catalog. And they can come in even with a no-name product as a brand new brand and get some market share because their pages just look better, right?
Yeah.
And now brands are coming back and saying, okay, well, we've lost market share to all these little tiny guys. Let's see if we can take it back by stepping up our game in terms of creative and content.
Just to add to that, I think if you look at Amazon too, right? Like they're so content hungry now, right?
Yeah.
Store pages, posts, video in so many formats, even within ads, and we'll talk about that more. But they certainly have become content hungry. And to your point, if you lean in, it's a true differentiator.
Right. Yeah, you're 100% right. And, they, with posts like Instagram, with live, like, stories and videos and things like that, like they're kind of forcing brands into, to have to play. And, little by little, consumers are getting used to using, absorbing content while on Amazon, right? Which never used to be a thing. But as soon as the consumer gets used to it, then it's a whole new ballgame, right? I mean, almost no one knows where to even define Amazon Live, but it generates tons of business for brands, right?
Yep.
So, it's definitely the times are changing.
Let's dig into video, which is today's topic, right? So, can you elaborate on the different places in which video content can be leveraged on Amazon?
Sure. There's only so many of them. So you can have video on your storefront, right? You can have video on your product detail page to replace image number 7, in your image stack. If you happen to be in one of the programs that gives you enhanced A+ content, you can use video there as well. Very small percentage of brands. And then the place where you probably need the most video is in advertising, so it needs to be a little bit different. But those are the places that you can use it.
And that's a good segue to talk about advertising and video. So, can you share with us, what are you seeing from a metrics perspective, as it compares to other ad formats and the importance of video within advertising?
Sure. Yeah, I think, and it's also important to kind of just circle back to that last question. I think what we see a lot of times is businesses try to use the same video in all the different places. Like they produce it and then they stick it in their store, they stick it on their detail page, and they try to use it for advertising. And it's important to understand that when a customer is seeing those videos, they're in a different part of the sales funnel. And so, with advertising, they're very much top of funnel, right? They're in the search, so they're in the middle of the funnel, but that might be their first exposure to your brand, right? So once they're in the detail page, they've already gone through 6 images, unless they just went down and clicked the video. And oftentimes when they see a video in your storefront, they've already been through your detail page, right? So these have to be done differently for different stages of the buying cycle. But I think, it's what's fun is that, let's just say all other things are equal. Now, it's not always true, but I know, we're going to see a slide in a second, Srinath, where, I know you guys were great and you guys pulled a ton of aggregate data across your platform. The advantage of having an ad platform is you get to see lots and lots and lots of data. So you see here over $10 million in ad spend. The click-through rate, a CTR of a video ad, is outperforming all the other ad types by about 3 times, right? So it's really interesting. So I think the biggest thing is it increases engagement, right? So that CTR, you can't sell a product through an ad until you get a click, right? And so and that's really what it's all about when it comes to video advertising. It's driving additional eyeballs on your listing through increased CTR or click-through rate. But I want to take it a step further, right? Because if you take, and let's just say that's the only metric that's changed, right?
Sure.
Based on your data, that the conversion rates are all very similar. Even with ACoS staying around the same, the click-through rate changes the game, right? So if we take that and apply it over 1 million impressions, right? It starts with the impression potential of someone to see you, right, or click on you. The other ad types have an average click-through rate of 3.9 or 0.39%, whereas on the video ad has an average click-through rate of 1.23. So as you can see from just looking at that drives 3 times the number of clicks, which drives a massive increase in sales. And so, what this does is it can really stretch the ad budget of an advertiser. And we'll get back into some of our clients that are doing just that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And then just for the benefit of the viewers, a little bit of context on the data. We pull this data together across a number of accounts, a little over $10 million of ad spend in a month. And just our point was to look at comparative metrics between campaign types. With that, I mean, obviously all content is ultimately about conversion. Any specific tips around how to create video content that truly converts?
You know what? I think there's probably not a single formula, right? Like we get in and we learn about the brand. I think ultimately though, you've got to really understand why people buy your product, right? So it's not enough just to know that people are buying your product. Why are they buying?
Yeah.
So whenever we do any creative piece at Page.One, the team's always asking 2 questions: who buys this and why? So it's the demographic of your buyer, and it's the emotional reason that they're clicking add to cart when they find your product as a solution to one or more of their problems. Okay, she's gonna fight her way in.
Yeah. Okay. What's her name, by the way? What's her name?
Santi.
Santi.
So Santi is now world famous. Okay. So I think, if you want specifics, if we're just talking about advertising videos, you got to grab their attention in the first 3 to 5 seconds. Like our attention span as consumers is so short. They're scrolling down, that video's playing, it starts playing with the volume off. And so, you either need a really powerful visual in the first 3 to 5, even 2 to 3 seconds, a really powerful graphic, or some sort of really powerful subtitle, that's attached to a voiceover. Focus on the emotion, solving the pain that gets by and supported by the benefits. And as I said, use graphics and subtitles because it's some people are going to click without ever turning on the sound, right? But it's most important to remember that the video in advertising really only has 2 jobs. Number 1 job is get the click. So whatever you need to do to get the click, that's it. Within terms of service, obviously, and then start having the customer lean forward in their buying decision. So engage them enough to say, okay, this is really interesting, I want to learn more. That's really it. And quite honestly, like we do, sometimes full big production videos, but sometimes the ugly stuff works, I'm not saying that you have to go out and hire an agency. You could take still photos and put them through a process and use something like Canva. And I know I'm talking ourselves out of a lot of business, but sometimes that will work, right? I mean, and it'd be dumb not to at least test it, right?
I mean, I love the 2 simple yet hypercritical questions, right? Like, who's the buyer and why? Just value proposition.
Right.
And then the other interesting thing in particular about video content is like the consumption happens without the audio a lot of times. Right?
It does.
Often the perception around content creation is it can be expensive. And let's say I'm a brand with a large catalog. how should I think about this? Are there incremental ways to attack this opportunity? Any guidelines?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack on that question. I mean, the good video is expensive. I mean, there's just no way around it, right? But again, you don't always need great video to sell product. You know, sometimes good video is enough, right? And so I think if your brand is sitting there looking, okay, we've got X number of SKUs, we have no video content whatsoever, we've got to get this started. I would say a couple of things. One is you prioritize your catalog, right? So if you're like most businesses, 20% of your SKUs are generating 75 to 80% of your revenue. And you always want to start with added assets to where your money's coming from, right? So those SKUs have the most traffic. They're the easiest to add a video ad to. They're getting the most sessions, right? So adding a video to the product detail page, you can immediately note that date and start seeing if it actually does increase conversion. Because once you see it on the numbers on the back end, it's really easy to justify the expense, right? So what we've done at Page.One is we tried to reduce the friction and the expense on the two biggest parts of the cost within video production, which is the actual filming and the editing. And so what we do strategically is we look at what are all the places this SKU is going to need to have a video on Amazon, and we try to we plan and strategize and do the creative for all of it at the same time, so that we can shoot at the same time and we can edit at the same time. And what that ends up doing is it takes, you know, I mean, the least number of videos you're going to want for a SKU is 3, right? So 1 for the product detail page and at least 2 ads, right? I mean, you could really argue that you'd want more, but that's at least kind of the starter pack, right? So, you know, we can shoot that if we're in the studio. We don't have to leave the studio, right? We're not, maybe we're using a model on a tabletop, or you know, it's a white background. Maybe it's a fashion product where we show them on white background walking in, or rolling in a suitcase, whatever. You know, those videos are gonna, the final production, we'll end up with 3 videos produced for probably $700 a piece. I mean, it's you know, when you can do it like that, we've really made it a lot less expensive.
Any success stories from your past work that you'd like to share, Keith?
Well, I'll share one. So it's interesting. We have a client, we're managing their ad spend on your platform. And
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the business.
And they've had months, like right now, I just checked the last 30 days, and about 30% of their sales are coming from their ads. Now, I've also seen it on a month where almost 50% of their sales were coming from their video ads, right? So almost 30% are coming from their video ads. Of all their advertising sales right now, last 30 days, 30% came from their videos. And those videos right now have a CTR of 2.35%, which that's pretty darn high, right? Yeah, that's good. So so the ACoS is great, conversion is great, it all looks good. And the great thing about video is, you know, you're hard pressed to find a keyword that doesn't have sponsored ads all over it, right? But there's still tons of keywords that don't have any video run, right? And so, you know, when you understand that it's a you know, demand-based platform, that is something you want to run too fast.
And you know, significant gaps, and then especially an ad format where conversion rates are very comparable to the other formats, and a much higher CTR. So with that, like in closing, if there's one piece of advice, one line that you want to share with the audience, what would that be?
Get going on your creative enhancements to your brand, right? So, because all of your competitors are going to be doing it, right? So just get it started, you know. And the thing that people get caught up with is, they think they've got to make everything perfect, and it's just not true. Just get it going. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be live.
Yeah.
Yeah. Videos that are ideas in your head don't make sales. So get it up. And and the first ones, if you do it yourself, they're going to suck. They're going to be really bad, right? They're not going to look good by comparison to what your content looks like in 6 months or a year from now. But just get it going.
So commit to action, get out there, learn, iterate.
100%.
Well, Keith, we'll call this a wrap. This is super insightful. Clearly, you and your team spend a ton of time on this topic. Thank you for sharing. Honestly, for anyone that's either watching a video or is interested in a video content production, here is Keith and Page.One contact information. Please feel free to reach out to them. It's Q4. It's prime time for all of us. Wish you well, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for having me, Srinath. Happy Q4, everybody.